One of the biggest mistakes I see folks making is they will look at a job post, they will mistakenly think they're not qualified for the role, and then not apply. Actually, turns out, if you submit an application, you may very well get an interview, and you may very well get an offer. If you apply to a string of jobs that you don't get traction on, that's when, only then, that's when it's time to step back, reevaluate. Are you applying to the right kinds of jobs? Do you need to adjust your resume? Do you need to adjust other aspects of your strategy? Do you have gaps you need to fill in? Or some combination of all of the above? But one of the best ways to find out if you're qualified for a job is to apply for that job and see if you get an interview. For folks who are looking to build or expand their career in data science, you have to put projects in production. It's not enough really to just have an example notebook that shows a project you worked on. You really want a project that is in production. So you can send the project to a recruiter or a hiring manager, and they can not only see the code and the results, but also interact with the project that you've built. You can do this on a variety of services. One of my favorite, though, that takes out most of the work associated with setup is called PythonAnywhere.com, and it's from the folks over at Anaconda. So you know that this is a strong platform backed by a really well-respected organization in the data science community. If you haven't learned about PythonAnywhere.com and how you can put a data science project into production, in other words, build a small web app there, you really need to do yourself a favor. Head on over to PythonAnywhere.com. If you still have questions, ask me, reach out. I'll do my best to give you some additional advice. And what they do at PythonAnywhere.com is they give you a platform where you can build a small web app or even a large web app for that matter. And if you're trying to grow or expand your data science portfolio and presence online, you can use PythonAnywhere.com to put a data science project into production. And once you have that ready to go, now you have an actual working in production example of your work as a data scientist you can send to a recruiter or a hiring manager in the course of a job search. This is gold for folks who are looking to enter or level up their career in data science. If you've been thinking about taking your career into data science, you can take advantage of generative AI in multiple ways. One of the ways that you can do this is, especially if you've been working on taking your career into more classic traditional data science directions, now that we have generative AI, if you do the research and decide that you'd rather take your career in that direction, more towards generative AI, with the solid foundation that you've already built in the classic traditional data science arena, you can now apply that to generative AI, and it's only going to make you a stronger candidate for roles in generative AI. So the real challenge is just deciding, do you want to track your career more towards the traditional so-called classic data science career options, or do you want to track your career more towards the newer generative AI options? Both are viable. You have to do the research and you have to make the decision. And once you make the decision, that's how you move forward. One of my favorite shows ever is Great British Bake Off. I've watched the entire series from start to finish so many times. And one of the things that Great British Bake Off has taught me about data science is that you have to do the work in order to learn the skill. In other words, if you're going to learn to bake a cake, are you going to buy a bunch of cookbooks and read them on your sofa? Or are you going to spend time in the kitchen with the ingredients and with the tools, baking the cake and then getting folks to test your cake and taste it and then enjoy it as well? The same is true for data science. If you're going to learn data science, you can't just buy a bunch of books and sit on the sofa and read about it. You have to bake the cake, proverbially speaking. You have to build a project. So building a project in data science, you could use a site that I like to recommend on a regular basis, PythonAnywhere.com, for example, to put a project in production. Then, once you have the project in production, get people to taste your project and then tell you what it tastes like, give you advice, give you feedback. It's the best way to showcase your examples, but also simultaneously build skill. So you're already a data scientist, and now you want to further advance your career. One of the best ways to further advance your career is to look at potential leadership roles. One of the best ways to establish yourself as a leader in data science is to work on establishing yourself as an expert in building and promoting data culture, organizational data culture. And that's one of the things I talk a lot about in all of my books. How to build data culture, what data culture is, why it's valuable. When you establish yourself as a leader or an expert in data culture, you can also establish yourself as someone who's ready to be an organizational leader. Advancing your career in data science, once you're already working in data science, often involves moving into a leadership role. One of the best ways to both prepare for a leadership role and then also establish yourself as eligible and ready for a leadership role is to establish yourself as an expert in organizational data culture. One of the things I talk about in my book is what is organizational culture, how can you build organizational culture, and why building a strong organizational culture is valuable for the organization. Data culture is data-related customs, data-related values, data-related language that a group of people will share among themselves and then pass from one generation to the next. When you are looking to advance your career in data science, consider establishing yourself as an expert in data culture.